All right, do I need to start over? Or are we good?
No, good. Go.
All right. So uh throughout the county, with the exception of the Magothy River watershed, we have a few easements in Annapolis, but obviously not as many as you all do, and we are based in Annapolis. Um, we have four full-time staff, so we are, in the land trust world on the like smallish side, um, but have good capacity for the 82 easements currently that we hold throughout the county. Um, that they're all monitored mostly by our staff. So we have a very busy stewardship staff that monitors our easements. And they vary in size. Some of the smallest ones are currently in Annapolis. I think we have a 0.25 acre one on Cherry Grove, one that Dylan was just emailing me about. That I think may be our smallest easement. Generally outside of the city, um, we have a minimum size of 10 acres, but depending on ecological importance and connectivity and adjacency, we make all sorts of uh allowances for that. Um, Additionally, we are just about to acquire Masque Farm, the easement right off of Spa Road, 121 acres. Um, which would be a pretty good size acre, certainly the largest one, pretty good size easement, well, certainly the largest one in Annapolis. Um, Dylan and I have talked a little bit, and so actually Jack and I have talked a little bit. And I don't know that we have a clear path, but I think there is definitely an opportunity to start figuring out how scenic rivers can help increase the capacity of the easement monitoring and actually easement through measuring, for lack of a better term, of the easements in Annapolis, trying to figure out where exactly they lay. Doing some helping with some survey work, potentially all of those things to try and modernize and bring the easements under your survey uh, up to date. But I don't know that we've chatted through any like actual strategies for that piece at this point.
No, yeah, it was definitely more exploratory. Josh, you showed me a really great tool that River Land Trust is using to monitor your easements. I know in the past, the Conservancy Board has sort of done things through email, through drives, kind of doing its best to put together sort of hands-on documentation of things. Um, the tool seemed like a really great way to just organize everything. Would you be willing to talk a little bit about that? It doesn't sound like you have the ability to share a screen right now. But yeah, that was really interesting to me.
Yeah, the program we use is called Landscape. And Landscape is, I don't know if it was created by the Land Trust Alliance, but it is certainly heavily promoted as the best tool for easement monitoring. And Landscape creates an inventory of all the easements that are that any organization can monitor and hold. And you can search by location, by size. It's really great for reporting. It's really great for monitoring. It's really great for tracking changes. It allows for multiple users, and so that you can have an all volunteer board like you do. You can have multiple users add input on easements. Um, and it's not super expensive. I think it's a really great tool to track and monitor the easements that an organization holds. And plus it's the nationally accepted tool for how to monitor easements. And it allows you, if you actually talk to other organizations, they're looking for landscape style files as well.
Mhm.
Um, so I 100% recommend it as a really user-friendly and accessible tool. It's got both a desktop and mobile application as well.
Mhm. Yeah, super interesting. And the way that we're organizing our easements from the city perspective right now is, you know, we have the website, we have a list of our easements. We list the deed and plat, with what we have available. And we also have, kind of like an exported GIS mapping, basically like shapefile layovers of the area. Um, but I don't find it particularly user friendly, and it doesn't incorporate that sort of data that you're talking about. So I think, having that dual use of, the visualization and, the actual functionality of those different things would be really, really useful for both the board and for the city.
Yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense. I mean, if you're looking at it on a global side, be it politics, be it just communication between businesses, it's always helpful if you've got a similar language to start out with, so that we all understand what the other is doing. Is there a it's I'm sure way too early to talk about cost of things, but as far as um, an overall, if, for example, the board did decide that it would be good for, improving, again, synergy, improving the progress and time that it takes for us to get all the important information that we need to take that route and be able to go to the city, go to the new mayor and saying, okay, fine, if you want to be able to have this as an improvement, this is what the annual cost might be in order to be able to utilize, whatever tools that are out there. Hopefully the landscape tool that's out there is marketable, and that somebody is at least, taking good care of, how one obtains it, from other conservancy organizations.
Yeah, there and Dylan and I did a little looking when we were chatting last. There's a government rate, so you could actually purchase a membership to it. I think my question is though, um, just because you purchase landscape, I don't think that's going to change some of the capacity issues that you guys have. You still have to have people
Mm.
go out and do the monitoring, and so I don't think tonight's the time to talk about it, but whenever you hold your next meeting, I think there's an opportunity for me to, with a little advanced planning, come to the meeting and talk about how an organization like Scenic Rivers could actually start to assist with some of the monitoring. But now, if that was the case, we'd have to figure out, I know that you're all volunteer. We're going to start doing it. We need to figure out some way, shape, or form for us to be able to fund our staff to get out there.
Right.
Especially if it's a long-term partnership. And so, I'm not necessarily expecting the city to go, but they're not putting much funding behind the Conservancy. They're certainly not going to pay a nonprofit partner, at least not initially.
Right.
So we'd have to figure out, a fundraising strategy or something to move that forward.
Yeah, it only makes sense somewhere along the line. I mean, the board used to have funding over, I don't know, a couple of administrations past, and it gets difficult. All you need to do really is read uh, any of the charters for the city of Annapolis, and it's when you start getting as old as that gets, it really starts to show its age. Like, it's been cut and pasted so many times together, it makes for an interesting read. But having a commitment and having a direction and having it actually as a way forward, I think that, Scenic River Land Trust, one, you've got a good rep, you've got you are staffed, you are funded in order to be able to do things. But I think the thing, at least to me, after listening and seeing what you all have been able to accomplish, is that if the Annapolis board, rather, we want to, formalize things as we continue to move on. But as we start to do that, you know, you guys, again, create an awful lot of support as far as being, taking on some sort of a project. But even if we did nothing more than awareness of your projects, be able to identify things that the city would like to be able to join in on or continue on with it, to do similar things, so that, one, we're not working against each other, which I doubt would happen, but this way too, we may be able to light a fire and show greater progress if you do have a couple of conservancy agencies that are actually talking working and communicating with one another as far as how one can help the other actually achieve things, more much more so than any one individual organization could achieve. And I think, if we can build a victory here or there, if they decide to go through that route, we may be able to get a little bit of a self production machines going, getting started, and just actually capitalizing on the fact that you do have more people that are working together that can form something, for a project. I'm sorry, I'm babbling right now. It's the drugs. I was sharing earlier. I've had surgery earlier this week, so I'm declaring a
Well,
not fully rational on this one today.
no, that makes sense. And and hopefully you're healing quickly and don't need
Yeah.
too many more good drugs.
Yeah.
But you're making sense. And I think the other thing that we can do is I have known Jared for quite a long time. And I think there's once we start to figure out a direction, I don't have any doubt that if I request a meeting with Jared, we'll be able
Good.
to set one up. So
Great to know.
Yeah, I think it would be really productive, to get something, organized here. I think there's a need for it. And, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Conservancy Board, but this is something that I would, really like to support in any way I can. So yeah, future meetings is definitely something that I would like to see.
when is the next meeting?
So the Conservancy Board meets every 2 months. And well, typically boards don't meet in December, but that wouldn't happen anyways. So it would be January. And specifically, that would be the second Thursday of January. So that would be the 8th at 5:30.
Okay. Well, do we want to work on finding some time, Dylan, for me to sit down with you and anybody else from the board?
Yeah,
start to
yeah, I
map out
think
some
that'd be
ideas?
fantastic. I think some membership and leadership things need to be sorted out. But yeah, let's keep an email chain going. I can talk with Deputy City Manager Jackie and see if there's something we can do here.
Hey Josh, it's Aaron. Yeah, happy to be part of that as well. Any of those discussions.
Great.
Yeah, happy to facilitate something. I think this is great. I definitely see there's some excitement here from the board. So yeah.
All right. I might jump off so I can try and track down my kids.
Don't let them fall in. Yeah, this goes along with the earlier part. The Olympics, or climbing, is now an Olympic sport, or at least it was in Paris. So
Yeah.
Stand by. You'll soon be having your own Olympic theme coming out of your stereo systems.
All right. Well, I guess I'm ready. I don't know.
There you go.
They're both built for climbing more than other sports, so I'm fine with them doing this rather than
Nothing wrong with that.
no. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the time, and I apologize for having to jump so quickly tonight, but look forward to being able to hang out longer in January.
Yeah, fantastic, Josh. Really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye all.
Okay, yeah, that was great. Josh is pretty new to Scenic Rivers Land Trust, but it seems like they're doing really great things. So yeah, hopefully we can get something going there. So yeah, we did send out the agenda. I don't think there was a ton of input on this one. Aaron, Tom, did you guys want to talk about anything in particular before we move on?
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron, please.
I have not seen the agenda, but would love to kind of understand what the thinking is with Jack's replacement, given that he's recently moving out of the city. I'm not sure if that was on the agenda, but before we get funding, it would be nice to have a leader. Step one, the leader. Step two, funding. Step three, hiring help. kind of seems like the order, but
No, I would agree.
There you go,
Uh,
making sense again. Gosh almighty.
Yeah, I think typically what happens is that, the outgoing chairperson would, nominate someone or, ask for someone to volunteer themselves to be chair. Not something that, I as staff would necessarily be willing to do. That's typically how it works. I think typically there's a vote, and assuming that there's no naysayers, that person will become the chair and move forward from there. Um, so, hopefully, and that can happen over email. I don't think we have to wait until next January for Jack to facilitate that. I do think it's important. So yeah, maybe via email, we can have a vote for who the next chairperson can be. Um, but yeah, I mean, the recruitment is on the agenda. We don't really have to follow the agenda, especially since this isn't really an official meeting. But yeah, I think definitely that's an important thing. Just getting more people on the board. Um, I would like to see Josh on the board. Just because he lives in the city and he's got so much experience in easements. I think that makes the partnership a little bit more tricky. But we can see about that. And yeah, some other ideas I have. We can get into it now if you guys want. But yeah, totally agree that those things need to be sorted out before we talk about bringing on help by contract. And Tom, were you going to get into something?
It was I'm still suffering from, I think everything kind of has gotten to a point. My computer is dead or dying soon. The gerbil has given up its last gasp. So I've got to get a whole new set of AI kind of stuff in place again so that I can see what the rest of the world's been doing. So that seems to be the goal. And like I said, between that and trying to change parts in order to try and extend my warranty is apparently the goal of my new primary doc. So we'll find out what she's got to go for me for the future. But yeah, it's just a matter of trying to get all the piecemeal stuff together. And again, once we get down to it, Aaron, you brought up a very good point. You've got to have the head. Then you've got to try and do the funding. But we have fought long and hard trying to figure out exactly how we can make this happen for the board. And no matter how hard we have tried in the past, it doesn't mean that it won't work in the future. But we keep trying to live off the kindness of strangers, and that gets really awkward. For a lot of the people, it's kind of like, hi, how about giving us some land so that we can do this? We've got to, I think, put some heads together. And if we have to rock the boat in order to be able to do that, in order to, think out of the proverbial box as far as finding ways to try and accomplish something, but to kind of get us off dead center. And it's nobody's fault. It's just that, it's the operation of when you're trying to put together a total volunteer group. It's hard to come up with people who are all thinking along the same lines. So it's we move, but we move glacially. So if there's a way in order to light that up a little bit and find ways to to address pulling things together, I think we could go a heck of a long way in at least short period of time to get it started.
yeah, absolutely. And to be frank, and maybe a little blunt, I mean, in the few months I've been on the board, I haven't really heard or seen any great like pitches in some sense of like, okay, here's the problem. This is what we have to do. This is how much money we think could help fix the problem, which is basically all the invasives all over our easements and the fact that we don't have the staff to send anyone there. And oh, by the way, here's, anyway, I think putting some of that together, those puzzle pieces of what kind of budget are we talking about, and why is this an issue? Why should me as the mayor or me as the city manager care about this?
Right.
And then going springboarding from that of like, okay, the baseline, hey, you own this property and we should be maintaining it. Step one into, okay, well, now we have the structure and organization to maintain this. What might it look like to get more, which has a benefit to the city in lots of ways that we'll need to quantify and make the pitch.
Yeah, I think, there's a number, and I keep going back because my background strength has been more in the the government financial side and the business side, as opposed to a lot of the conservation group. I mean, you guys are great as far as being able to put that together, but I'm kind of trying to take a look at the basic fact and basic needs that you've got. I mean, there's people who, if we can say, okay, fine, we're looking to build this trail, or we're looking to build this area of being able to get people going from point A to point B, and isn't that wonderful? And yes, it is. And that's one of the reasons why I suggested trying to maybe team up with somebody who has already gotten some progress going, hence Scenic River Land Trust guys. But when you have the when you're trying to convince people to join on right now, if we could dangle something that would be financially beneficial to them as well. Now, Aaron, you bring up a good point on whether or not, like, okay, you're part of the city. This can be of service to you, and we need to be able to do something instead of, gee, hey, we're nice people, and this is good for good for everybody. And we've obviously hesitated from making any progress, but that's because the city kind of ties our hands with the way the charter, is not our charter, but the city charter goes. Every way that you've turned, we've pretty much run into roadblocks. I don't think they're impassable. I just think we need to be able to say, okay, fine, acknowledge that this is a problem. Can we fix it? Yes, no. And if it's beyond us, who can we go to in order to be able to come up with a way forward, but one that will be able to get some traction? And then build off what Aaron just said.
Yeah, I think that sort of procedural thinking and just kind of getting the ducks in a row and kind of just having an action plan for how we're going to move forward makes perfect sense. I think kind of on that note, do we just want to get into ideas we have for recruiting new members?
Sure. I mean, if it's something that, whether we talk about it now or whether we talk about it, the next meeting or the one after that, as far as, we need to at least surface some ideas so that we don't all just, kind of beat it to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just, from a, like it would be helpful to have like the sales pitch. I mean, in some ways, right? Like we need to be selling for new members, selling to the city to show that we're relevant and important. And yeah, I'm not sure if I knew somebody who I knew was extremely qualified for this, I'm not sure what I would tell them why it's important for us to be here. Like I haven't really heard that, honestly.
Sure.
No, it's a very valid point. I mean, the person who originally was fostering the idea, and it could very well have been that there were, some things ahead. Do any of you guys know Steve Carr?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, Steve used to be part of the city's assist group. He was, I think Dylan was kind of, doing some of the things that you all are, trying to work through anyway. He was working for Ellen Moyer. And between the two of them, they came up, I think, with, gee, isn't this grand? This is something new and different, having a city, a city conservation group, because everybody, kind of tries to go for the big, the larger dollars, larger things that are out in the, in the outskirts. But we're kind of landlocked as far as that goes. So, gee, wouldn't it be great to be able to do that? So, I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that probably getting a hold of these guys and just asking them to come back in to talk to them, or at least make an appointment to talk to them, saying, hey, where did you run into roadblocks? What did people say that could or could not be done? Or why, in answer to your question on this thing was, why were we even brought together in the beginning? And get that justification out there. I mean, you can see things, especially when it works. The problem with that we've had within the board is that you don't have the power, you don't have the influence, don't have you don't have the budgets. Obviously, the biggest part of the budget over the last probably 10 years has been a very small amount for the creation of signage. But I mean, that was pretty much it. I mean, there are a lot of very talented people that you guys know and that you work with, I'm sure. But right now, it's, hey, you're a nice guy, and how would you like to give us some land? Somehow there's something missing in that argument. As far as being able to add more to it. Now, maybe, adding more or just creating better connections. We may want to, address or rewrite some of the things as far as what our overall goals are.
Yeah, I definitely see the point there. Can I ask just why you two as individuals were interested in joining?
Myself, again, to answer quickly, and I will then keep quiet and let the drugs do their thing. I had my alderman came to me and said, hey, this is what these guys are planning. You work for the Navy, I work for the Navy. What about something to make sure that whatever we do stays on the on the legal and the financial side, and things that are can be built without putting anybody in jail. And that was, I mean, it was basic information like that. And I said, sure, I've got the time, and I'll be happy to to help wherever I can. And as it turned out, because of the turnover, I've long since stayed on, far past, the first 3 or 4 times that I've suggested, some of the things to get done. But, it's just, you get like a big puff of air that will get you going, and then it just dies. And it's not, again, not anything to do with the people, not anything to do with the situation. It's just, it's some of the trouble that you run into when you're just dealing with a strict volunteer. Anyway, that's it. I'll got to go back and take more drugs.
Tom, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'll give that a try. I'm just going to stand by, but I'll keep quiet. My promise.
Because we appreciate your input. Aaron?
Yeah, I work in conservation every day. I mean, I bought an easement today up in Pennsylvania. I buy easements all the time. So I work in conservation a lot, and saw it as a way to help the city be a better place. Find properties that are interesting and worth protecting, and adding to green space, adding to forest cover, adding to canopy, increasing the wildlife and in our urban area, increasing connectivity between different neighborhoods. So yeah, just try to find a way to give back and to be just try to make this city a better place.
You definitely have the right background. There's no two ways about that one. As far as seeing what can be done, somebody who can keep the vision alive. Again, shifting so many people coming in and coming out, and a lot of work gets foisted over on the on the few people that are there. And again, without any authority or power to actually push anything through, it gets to be a challenge, I'm sure. But no, keep up the fighter, and I'm right there with you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to do anything with 6 meetings a year. I mean, I know it seems a little odd to ask people for more time, but I also think in-person meetings would be more productive. I know that's maybe a little bit harder, but I think it would add more cohesion to the group, and be a bit more of like a fun, more like collaborative meeting people and kind of getting to know like-minded neighbors who care about the city.
Yep.
Those are just like a couple ideas just off the bat. I mean, I think that would help. You know, some of the positives of other boards I'm on is like actually like just frankly getting dinner and beers with like-minded people and people who, you know, want to talk about ways to make the city better. So that would be like a pretty easy and free way to like add to the benefits of membership on this board.
Yep. No, I agree. You know, back when I mentioned Steve Carr, and I'm sure that this got locked up in some political battle, you know, way back when. But this used to be a monthly board meeting, and they used to be able to do just that. And it got to the point where, you know, people were getting together over the, you know, summers for, you know, either a cookout or it's just, again, it's an excuse to get together to chat. Um, I share your belief, and my old boss, who was able to accomplish great things, you know, was a strong believer in that. Says unless you look somebody straight in the eye and just kind of, you know, start shooting the breeze, nothing will ever replace what you can do in person by just trying to do it over Zoom calls or things on that order, because you need that connectivity. You need to be able to go and blow, you know, just blow off some steam every so often. And you do need to be able to come back and actually talk frankly with, you know, with somebody that you can do over a beer someday, that you can do over. I shouldn't say that. My doc will probably knock that out too, but it'll all happen. You know, when people are not feeling cornered, whenever they're, you know, they let their creativity loose a little bit, and you know, people bringing in from the outside, you know, like you were saying, Aaron, it's amazing what you can accomplish, what you succeed at in other areas probably is applicable to a lot of the things that are here that have stymied the situation. So I said, we haven't run into people, but you have run into, you know, a city that's, you know, 300 pushing 400 years one of these days of inertia setting in. So that's about it. I'm already going back on my promise. Let me go get those drugs. It'll help.
You know, I definitely have felt in the past that, you know, I think it's fine, you know, to have like an off-cycle call every 2 months. That's Zoom. But I
Yep.
do think in those gap months that the current Conservancy Board currently has, I think something like a talk and chop would be great. You know, just actually go to the easements themselves, you know, check them out, do some needed maintenance if there is. And, you know, afterwards, you know, a social hour, optional. I think that would be great. Yeah, I think Aaron makes a great point that sort of kind of camaraderie, you know, found something that's strong. Um, you know, again, I'm only staff. So I can't necessarily say, okay, we're going to do this now. But I think that'll be, you know, really great to move forward, you know, progress and kind of get some momentum going for, you know, actually engaging with these easements and, you know, kind of just letting people kind of, yeah, like you're saying, Tom, just get that creative juices flowing and, you know, actually move to solicit new easements and work out in the community and, you know, kind of be known as an active force for conservation in the city.
And I think there's, you know, there are a number of people around the city that have either brushed with or gone through either membership on the board that would be interested in. Okay, fine. Even though we're not on the board, you know, I made friends with so and so. Wouldn't it be great
Mm.
do what they're doing. Keeping them engaged sure as heck couldn't hurt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, reaching out to some local orgs, we just talked with Scenic Rivers Land Trust, but also we talk a lot about Save Our Trees, MDRC, Seven River Association. I think talking to some people there and seeing if anyone there is a city resident and seeing if they'd be willing to participate as a member. We've talked about email blasts from the newly elected council persons, as well as the newly elected mayor, to their constituents, I think would be useful. Among other things, maybe even potentially reaching out to, like an email blast or kind of like a Naptown Scoop, people like that who can just kind of get the word out that, we're looking for members. Based on what you said, about why you joined, I think, just kind of pitching that, this is a board that, pushes the envelope for better conservation in the city and for taking care of what biodiversity that we do have. Aaron, I definitely get your point. Well, people might get here and they might see that, this is me just kind of echoing, but maybe it hasn't been the most productive board in recent times. So I think, just kind of like having that sort of organizational strength and, perhaps funding, something that we can talk about, to really have, some steam behind the engine. I think kind of having those two things in tandem would be really, really impactful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it does, Aaron. One thing too, and maybe maybe we can look at it as another group, put our heads together between now and the next meeting. I mean, one of the challenges, this happened a couple of years ago. I don't know, when everybody had to, sign a note, and there's a portion of it supposedly legal handled it. I have not seen the rewrite, not that I have to, but I was not willing to sign up on one of the boilerplate kind of directives that the city wanted to have at that time, because if you read it closely, what you ended up with is, if you ever agreed or if you ever disagreed, let's put it that way, or if you ever said anything that would be counter to, or decided to be counter to what the city was leaning. Of course, none of us were involved as far as what direction the city actually had. This was a lot of the laissez-faire that management style that had been done over the years as they shifted, but that they would be subject to like a $5,000 a day or $5,000 an event penalty charge on to anybody who did that. Like I said, you've got 300, almost 400 years as we continue to push of ways of doing things, and there are some there was one, and again, supposedly that had been removed enough, but we just want to make sure that if we're looking to rock the boat, that we're not going to get executed at dawn because of something that somebody did in well-meaning but left themselves open illegally. I think that might be something to take a look at, or have somebody take a look at in the meantime, because that'll grind as much positive effort out of anybody, if they realize that if they actually are saying something that is counter to what was mentioned 30 years prior to it, because it's never been lifted from the charter, from the directive of the city, that they're subject to legal ramifications on it. It was a weird one, and it just stuck out. But because of how the city charter was written, there was no way in order to be able to go in and verify it, and it was just kind of like when people were being forced to sign. It's like anything else, if you're forced to do something, you all of a sudden decide to take a little bit more interest. And that was what caused me to, find something that was just kind of, wasn't going to work. So yeah, I want to make sure that, good intentions can continue to be good intentions, and that, whatever is done is in fact being done as, representative of the city. But as of right now, as far as I know, still, because we are a city entity, there is a real short leash as far as how much authority one has to rock the boat. That's why I was saying, maybe we need to be able to rock the boat, understand with the new leadership that it might be appropriate in order to, hey, why don't we sit down and talk to somebody else instead of, oh my gosh, you went and actually talked to somebody else. You can't do that. That kind of, that kind of watch homework that can, probably make things a heck of a lot better for the new group coming in.
Yeah, I've definitely heard in the past about concerns of, you know, Conservancy board members being agents of the city and their access to properties and what sort of
Yep.
notice they need to provide to people and all sorts of different things. And I mean, obviously there are some legal bounds,
Right.
but I think just kind of having a clear message being conveyed. Um, I'm not exactly sure of the charter that you're referring to, but the specific section. Um, but yeah, I think just being really clear about like what the expectations are and trying to reduce the things that you're necessarily not allowed to do. Can't say too much on that, but yeah, I think just kind of clearing that haze so people feel comfortable to do what they're here to do would definitely be productive.
Yeah, I think that's where we ended up losing some of the early early adopters, the people that wanted to to press on and make things happen and do it for all the right reasons, and were very gently reminded not no but hell no. And because of that, I think that's where a lot of the steam was left out of the death ships. Sorry, I took my pills. I just haven't kicked in yet.
Being too hard on yourself, Tom.
Yeah.
Aaron, anything to add with that?
I'm sorry, what's that?
We were just talking about, some feelings regarding the legal
The leash that we have.
Sure, that's
Yeah,
how you.
I haven't really felt that yet, honestly. I mean, I think that's why council's on this call, right? Just to make sure we're not proposing anything crazy. But I don't think we are. I mean, we're talking about building organizational capacity to inspect our easements. I mean, that's what we're actually legally required to do. So I think it's actually almost tripping into the opposite problem, where we're sort of not really abiding by the stewardship of the easements because of invasives and other things, but mostly because we don't have a budget to do anything about it. But anyway.
Yeah, so I think, at the very least, we could just be more clear, from myself as a staff to upcoming members, like, this is kind of the bylaws. This is, what the agency is as, a city arm. And, trying to address any things like you're talking about with liability, Tom.
I mean, I don't think there's a real liability. I mean, I don't know.
No,
yeah, I need to look into it.
Yeah, if you could, I mean, this is, what I've shared. Sounds like it's like I said, I'll blame the drugs, but what I was sharing that a lot of this was locked in at a very early age. I mean, I can't even think of when that charter or when that language was placed in the document, but it was such that you knew it had been cut and pasted a couple of times. And what they were trying to do is tie somebody's hands from making any statements, which was definitely not the intent. for, the Conservancy Board. I mean, good heavens. It was just, something that you kind of took a look at. And I think you could go through pretty much any city that is been around for a long time, and you run into some really off the wall kind of things. And you either have to have a strong defense, or somebody, in the legal side who can say, no, that's not what they meant. So, we're not going to pay attention to this, or we're going to modify it. But it just to enable progress to be made, so that we don't just get ourselves wound up into not being able to get anything accomplished, which is what ends up happening more often than not. So, I mean, to have any
Gentlemen, I'm very sorry. I'm going to get the kids to bed, but really appreciate your time, and look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, for your input. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep, take care.
No, I see what you mean, Tom, and I think it's something that it's worth looking at. I'm not sure if that sort of documented language has been shared around recently, but yeah, I definitely don't want people in the Conservancy Board to feel like they need to watch their tongue and things along those lines. As long as it's nothing like too egregious, like if a Conservation Board member were to say, I don't know, to a big property owner, like, oh yeah, the city's taking this as an easement, that might not be the best thing ever, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to, make anyone feel like they just can't say anything.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that can be done, and all sorts of ideas. I mean, even Dylan, like if we had a group of various homeowners associations, and we pulled, we asked for a meeting of a couple of those HOAs, to the invited them to a meeting, for example, and what are their concerns are, what do they see that we could help them with. There could be a lot of things. I mean, I'm kind of sitting over here in the corner near Hunt Meadow, and to show the some of the challenges. I mean, right angled up to is one of our properties. It's the Muntz property. And I mean, talk about playing politics with little things. Muntz wanted to donate the property, but not to the city. They would donate it, with all sorts of ties together, because they just didn't like the people they were dealing with the city. So, you've got a whole lot of ones and things that kind of stick out. That yes, we can do that. We are agents of the city, but we do not speak for the city. So, it was allowed that they were going to be able to take over the Muntz properties. But it's just little things like that, and that ended up, I think, with a lot of wear and tear on guys like Steve Carr, and again, granted, this Conservation Board is not the biggest alligator in the swamp. We would like to be at times, because you see opportunities in order to do great things, but you need that kind of support, and that kind of support needs to be either a push from the person who can make decisions like that, like back when Ellen Moyer was mayor, she did some of those things, or from the city charter that says thou shalt go forth and prosper. So go make it happen. And when it gets down to committing to something, yes, you can only give an opinion, but you can't really speak for the city. That's fine. I don't think anybody has a power struggle that wants to go around and speak for the city. At least nobody that I have come across that has volunteered for this has really done so in order to even improve their own place. I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, when boards and committees of various homeowners association, people will join the board just so that they can have one thing changed within the homeowners laws that allow them to do something that is their own little pet project. I think everybody, for the most part, with us, it's just been, okay, what can we do to help? And just looking for an effort and some support in order to be able to make those things happen. So.
Yeah, I think I see what you're getting at. Okay.
Anyway, it wouldn't be around, and all that frustration with what can and can't be done when, it's taken a long time to get it as neutral as it, has gotten. It's done with some good push from, from the various presidents that we've had. And, invariably when the thing has died, it's pretty much died of, when the inertia's kicked in. It just kind of loses the energy.
Mhm.
And, a lot of that has gotten tied back into, what the city can and can't allow, people to do. So
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
it's not easy. It's
Mhm.
not easy being green, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, I think I'll get into that, and see if there's, I'll look into sort of the bylaws and things like that, and maybe pull up some of those things.
Yes,
Um,
you can reference. I mean, I was the one, not the instigator, but I was one of the ones that said not no, but hell no, and ended up signing it upon, somebody saying, "Oh, it's already been taken care of," so that that somebody else wouldn't run into bad positions. But had to come up with a situation to where it's crossed some personal references, or cross some lines where it might be perceived in a certain way, and you did not want the city to be embarrassed by a way that something was perceived. So you just kind of abstained from certain votes, or you said, okay, fine, this is what I can do, but this is about as far as I can go in my current situation. The rest of you guys go and do good things, but we'll have to back out of this one.
mhm.
But it's common sense sometimes gets lost. Well, yeah, I'm talking to you. You have to deal with that on a daily basis, where the legality starts to take what has been common sense and just kind of wraps it around the axle, and it's interesting what comes out at the other end. So,
Mhm.
but yeah. Anyway, whatever I can do to help, I will be happy to do it. Uh, and that I can do, no matter how many holes that they decide to put in me. And if I, just put me out in the wind. If I whistle, then I'm not fully together yet, and I'm just, hopefully those things will hold up soon.
No, Tom, I definitely, I don't know exactly what the situation is, but I do hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, it will. I'm just, more nervous babbling than anything else. I've worked with medical community for a long time, and I recognize where they are in their struggles to find an answer. So
Mm.
it'll all work.
Yeah, it's frustrating though. Um, so moving on to some other things.
Yep.
We in the staff side have been continuing to work with Macron on some of
Good.
those documentation issues that we have with our easements.
Yep.
Um, we actually did hear from a member of our staff who actually has been around for quite a number of decades with the city. And he actually recovered a document from 2004 that recovered some things about some city easements, some of which it doesn't seem like, in our current documentation, I don't want to say that we didn't know about, but maybe didn't know about. So, happy to talk about those with the broader membership,
Yep.
kind of show off some of those things. I think we kind of, I've given it to Macron to really give a further deep dive just to make sure that, maybe the terms on those things, hasn't expired because sometimes easements aren't permanent.
Right.
Uh, just wanted to make sure that those are all actually what they seem to be. But yeah, some exciting things there. Mike and I have been working together just to give them a good scope of work that can help us out. Appreciate the Office of Law's participation with that.
That
Um,
help. Yeah, it really is. There's just as an easement, I know we've gotten a few of them. One thing that has kind of dropped off the chart, although you're probably very familiar with it, right behind, or I'm gonna get the names of the trails. The trail that goes about a block or two away from Navy Marine Corps Stadium. It right by the I guess what had been, looks like a railroad crossing by the Annapolis Police office on whatever the heck road is. Yeah, don't get me on these drugs. They're really good for
Which office?
just the police the police.
Oh, Taylor Avenue.
Yeah, Taylor Avenue. You know how they built the new hotel there?
Hmm.
Used to be, just a whole lot of high tension power lines.
Yeah, Poplar Avenue.
Yeah. At one time, that was expressed that was an easement that was, awaiting action. Something was going on with that. And then, nothing happened forever in 3 days. All the people that, had said things like that had moved on. And the next thing we knew that there was a hotel there. So if just out of curiosity, if you're looking for a litmus test on exactly what it was or time wise, that may or may not be part of what you all have come across. I'm sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything related to that specific property,
Hmm.
but I do know there are a number of easements around that area. But yeah, I think that's kind of getting into the last stage of our work with Macrome.
Okay.
As far as, there's been times in the past where it seemed as though an easement was created. It wasn't maybe documented the exact right way. The
Right.
community knew about it, and then something happened there. Community said, "Hey, wait a minute," and then yeah, we had to come in after the fact and be like, "Oh, actually, yeah, there is a city easement here." So, that's kind of like the whole of what you don't know, right?
Yep.
So we're trying to sort of do a pretty broad search and just trying to find anything in the city that we might not be aware of that actually is a city easement.
Yep.
Macron has some pretty, specialized people there who can do that sort of work that, we might not be able to do with the expertise we have with, just doing deed searches and looking at plats and all sorts of different things.
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be their last little mission there.
Okay.
So yeah, I definitely see what you mean, and that's something that I want to rectify.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be able to do that. It's kind of like people, um, for all the right reasons. I'm throwing disclaimers all over the place, but for all the right reasons are wanting to do things, but we kind of have historically neglected to read reference A, and how did all this stuff get started, or why is this, or why did we want to come into to drain the proverbial swamp before we've kind of ended up up to our hips in it. So yeah, it's great that you're doing what you're doing with him, Dylan. It really is. I mean, long overdue. So it's good to see. It's good stuff. Thank you.
I'm just doing what I can.
Mm.
All right, Tom, is there anything else that you want to discuss?
No, sir. That's fine. Like I said, I'm the good drugs are starting to kick in now again. Just going back and forth, and I'll be doing better soon. They got to find a way to boost the impact on this just a little bit.
Mr. Lyles, is there anything that you wanted to add to our discussion?
No, sir. I'm good to go.
Okay. All
Thanks, everybody.
right, thanks, everyone. Yeah, not an official meeting, so no need to adjourn or anything.